Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, welcome to this 9th episode of our holiday hacks for 2022. We're talking about qualities of successful leaders. And if you haven't listened to the first 8 episodes, please go back and do so. They are worth doing, and they're short little episodes that won't take too much of your time. And I like our conversations on these a lot because they really focus on the qualities of leaders who have already shown to be successful and not just kind of aspirational, kind of good leaders in general. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the fact that successful leaders are role models for their followers. And I like this one a lot because we've talked about the importance of good leaders also being good followers, and the fact that your people are watching every single thing that you do is just something that I think a lot of leaders forget. They forget that it's happening. And you know what? If you're a great leader, and you realize, oh my gosh, people are watching me, then maybe it's not that big a deal. But for some people out there, if they don't necessarily act exactly like they're supposed to act 100% of the time, just 99% of the time, that 1% is the 1% that will be noticed and remembered. And so that's why it's so important to remember that your people are watching and you need to be a role model.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where like people are like, well, no, duh, like, of course, like that's kind of the idea. But to your point, it's in the nuance, it's in the little things, it's the small stuff, like, when there's an issue or a problem, how do you react? Do you have composure? Are you if you're frustrated about something going on at work, or a strategy or something that's happening, are you complaining to your people about that? Because like that's then what they do when they echo your complaints about the things that they're not happy with. They will then go complain to the team about those types of things, like stuff like that, where it may feel or seem like, no, I know that I'm a role model and I follow the policies, or I am good at executing the strategy, or I'm not asking people to do something that I wouldn't do. Those are kind of the bigger rocks on this thing. In my belief, it's the smaller ones that you need to be very aware of. Like if you're going to say that you want to, like if you're a servant leader, you would like to empower people, you want to work for your people. What are you actually doing? Like, how do you define that? What are you doing? What are your behaviors behind that? Because as your people take that same idea and then apply it to those that they lead, they're going to follow that definition of behavior, and how you treat them and how you define those things to them as what it is for the rest of the entire team. So I think it's one of those episodes where it's like, let me look in the mirror, let me think about it, let me maybe reflect upon how and where I'm spending my time as a leader. Because again, that's something that people will kind of follow and emulate when you're not around. Like those are all things that are really, really important. That sometimes you just need to think about it and refresh to make sure that you are spending your time in the places that are the most important and with the people that need it the most.
Yeah, the spending your time with the people. The importance of who you're spending your time around is really, really, really important, because your people are watching who you're spending time with, and they will judge what is important to you and what your values are based on where you're spending that time. They'll notice it, and you might be actually spending your time in exactly the right places, but not doing it publicly enough. And the places where you're spending your time that are the most visible or the most public are not necessarily the places where you want to be known for having that. This is on the highest level of values for me as a leader. So it's really important that your people see that where you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with, that is exactly what you want to espouse as a leader. If your people see you walking around with your boss or your boss's peers, more often than your peers, then it implies that what you're doing is you're spending your time trying to get into the good graces of who your bosses are, or spending your time trying to move up to the next level of the ladder, whatever that is. If your people see you spending time with their peers, walking out of the building and going and having lunch, or going to sit to have a coffee somewhere, or just having a walk around talk, if your time is spent with your people, they will know that your time is spent with your people, and they'll be more likely to ask for that time themselves if they need it or want it, versus thinking, oh, Lorenzo's not available, he's spending too much time with his boss. And so it's really, really important. So what I want to ask you, Lorenzo, is, one of the things that is really important for leaders to do is to show that unexpected changes aren't reacted to poorly, aren't something that kind of flusters you or kind of brings you out of the moment of composure and confidence. And they see the eye roll and they go, oh well, Lorenzo doesn't like this change either. I want to know about a time when you maybe reacted differently than you wanted to react, and then kind of had to go and correct it back later to make sure that your people were able to buy in on the change that was inevitable and that was going to happen. So I want to ask you that, but first I want to get a word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, have you ever had to kind of backtrack a little bit after not reacting in the best way to an unexpected change, and that started leading to your people thinking that it was a change that you weren't supportive of yourself?
No, absolutely. There's definitely been times, usually in things where you're maybe on a virtual call or a conference call or something like that, where you maybe have people in the room, but like you're muted. So like, you're listening to something being presented for the first time, or, hearing something that you just like, you're having a hard time connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And for those that know me, they're probably laughing right now because I have a hard time with keeping my face straight when I hear something that's crazy. And so they know that, and I think
you're the one thumbnail in the sea of nine with the eyes up straight in the air,
yes,
kind of subtly shaking your head.
Like what is going on right now? So no, it's something that I continue to work on to this day. But I also think for me it's different. I think that there's a human element, there's an emotional element, it's okay for you to disagree. It's okay for you to have an initial reaction about something where maybe you don't have all the information or you completely don't agree. As long as you're good at transitioning into like, well, hey, like, look, I don't agree with this or I don't like this either, but we have to figure out how to make this work. Right. So like
right.
we have to like that's what our responsibility is to each other, to our team, to an organization, is if this is what we're being asked to do, we have to figure out how this works. And I think it's okay when we talked about authenticity a couple episodes ago to say things like, in small groups. You don't want to. It's kind of like maybe a layer of leadership, maybe 2 layers of leadership. If you're in a role where you're a leader of leaders, or you have kind of a level of leadership, you have multiple levels below you. I think that it's okay to share, like, hey, I'm struggling with this too. I don't know that this is the decision that I would make, but there must be a reason, and this is a decision that's been made. So let's do our due diligence to do what we need to do to make this work. So I absolutely, there have been times where my initial reaction was that out of emotion or out of like, I don't understand this, and then continuing to get more information, or pausing and looking across the room and saying, hey, like as you can tell, I'm not really excited about this. But please understand, after this call, we're going to spend some time to dissect this so that we can kind of work through it together to understand what our responsibility is and how we're going to make this happen. So, I think, I don't know. I think for me, I like to see people react in a way that's authentic, as opposed to like jumping right away into the like, this is fun. What a great idea. This is going to be amazing. Like it's not always going to be amazing. It's not always a great idea. There's a lot of things in business and leadership that we have to do that we know that we don't want to do, but we have to. And some of those things are because we're thinking longer term or bigger picture, but in the moment it can still have a certain feel to it.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because just like it's not great leadership to react in a way that leads people to believe that you think whoever created this strategy is, bat-esque crazy. It's also not really good leadership for people to watch you and think, wow, Lorenzo really drank the Kool-Aid several years ago. And because nobody sane could look at this and think this is perfect and amazing just the way it is. There's no potential for fallout, no negatives. This is great. Let's move forward. Those are the kind of leaders I don't trust either. So you're right. If you think to yourself, this is not the decision I would make, and I'm having a hard time connecting the dots. And let's be real. If in the back of your mind you're thinking, whoever created this has never walked a moment in my shoes or in the shoes of the people that I'm leading, and I have no idea how they could possibly come to the conclusion that this is the right way of doing things. If that's what you're thinking, the right way to lead a team of people is to find the middle ground between I'm struggling with this and I need to figure out how to connect these dots so I can connect it for my people, and not drinking the Kool-Aid. So you can't look like you're just throwing your hands up in the air going, well, here we go again, but you also can't look like nothing is wrong. Neither is a real human reaction that leads to people wanting to follow you, because it doesn't come off as like you're a good leader. On the one hand, you're either reacting in a negative way, and the other hand, you're not real. And a real person would react in a real way, which is to say, you know what, I'm struggling with this, but I understand that it has to happen anyway. So let's talk this through. We need to talk this through so that I can get as much on the same page as possible. Because at the end of the day, I have people reporting to me, and I have to be able to make sure that they're bought into this too, in a way that doesn't make me compromise my values of authenticity to them.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I like that you kind of called that out, where being, I don't know, in those moments, I think being very real and being true to yourself and sharing those things, I think that in the longer term creates, a level of trust and integrity, and the fact that you're a human in these moments. I think that's really, really, really good for leadership. It's just one of those things. It's a pet peeve of mine when there's something that's being done, or a strategy that we have. Again, sometimes we have to do these things. Like business is business, and organizations make decisions that that may be painful in the short term, but really will be helpful in the long term. But if you're not willing to just react in a natural way, I think it just devalues a lot of leadership equity with the team.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about this too is that even if you're not in an actual formal leadership role, people are still watching you as a leader. If you have either tenure, you've been in a role longer than they have, they're watching what you do from that standpoint also. So just because you might not be in a situation where you have to kind of take strategy and present it to other people, the way you act and do your job day to day is being observed by other people who are trying to figure out the right way to go forward. And if you want to be the kind of person that exudes confidence, and that you are authentic to your coworkers, these things apply to you too, not just to you as you lead a team of people.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.